Let the man take a shit.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? He's probably just trying to get ready.
Hey, this is Peter. I love voicemails.
Leave him a voicemail?
So please leave me one. All right, thanks. Bye.
Exciting news from a week ago. Goose's second full-length album, Shenanigans Nite Club, is out, and I can assure you there is nothing else I will be listening to until we get up to Swansea this Friday.
At long last, Goose's sophomore full-length studio album has arrived. Shenanigans Nite Club, the new release from the Connecticut-based rock quintet, comes in the midst of yet another year of seemingly unstoppable upward trajectory for the gaggle. This 9-track collection of music written over the past decade presents musings on a journey through life and a quest for fulfillment, all while saluting the important figures along the way.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. It's news to me. But to give you listeners a little more background, we were able to grab interviews with our favorite Frenchman, Franz Petít Lúpen, which we learned means little wolf appropriately, as well as the album's co-producer and engineer, Kenny Cash, who also produced Moon Cabin. So thank you to both of them for calling in. But first, let's check out what's going on in the news. Well, as we wait patiently, very patiently, for the rest of our vinyls.
TikTok.
Just patience. We at least have a string of shows and a Goose Festival to look forward to. Remember when that was announced?
Yeah, I think we had an episode coming out that day. 2 for 2, baby.
Nice score.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Fred the Festival was announced last week, and we absolutely cannot wait. Included on the lineup, we have a whopping 4 sets of Goose.
Maybe an encore.
Oh, man. Yeah, if we have time. 2 sets of Dawes, including one as a tribute to Paranoid, which is going to be sick.
That would be very cool.
Dr. Dog, which apparently is their final year touring as a band. And if you can't make it to Fred, they're also performing Saturday with Goose at See Here Now, so check that out. Corey Wong, his Golden Messenger, 2 sets of Grateful Shred, an acoustic trio set, maybe the act I'm most excited for, Vasudo, featuring Peter. That's going to be sick. Sammy Ray and the Friends, and then Elephant Proof doing a late night set. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on the lineup as a whole. But first, you guys have been talking to me about Fasudo for, since we started this podcast. How excited are you to see this band again?
I mean, I barely survived the last time they played.
So when was that?
I think it was like July 7th, 2013. It was the end of that. It was the end of that Fish run where so the Bangor was July 3rd. And then 4th they were off, and then 5th, 6th, 7th they played in 2013 at Saratoga. And we had a big house with Team Blas fam, and they played in the basement at night after the Fish show till 5:30, as the story goes. One of our good friends, girlfriends, Laura, at the time, plugged in her phone. She decided she needed to charge it at 5:30 in the morning, and promptly all the power shut down in the house. So that was pretty much the end of that show and the last show they played. And there was a lot that happened after that. I'm not at liberty to say, but yeah, that was but it was a hell of a show. I can tell you that.
What a way to go out. An iPhone 3.
Needless to say, people didn't go to bed at 5:30, I think is what you're saying.
Maybe people couldn't go to bed at 5:30, but we know how that goes.
So it's a really diverse cast of names on this lineup that really don't pop up in the jam band scene as much. Are there any you guys are looking forward to in particular?
I saw Dr. Dog at Brooklyn Steel a couple years ago. It was a really fun show. And so I, assuming I can go to the festival,
yeah,
it's a week before
I
my
think we
wedding.
have to check with our manager.
Yeah, my manager. We may be tied up around then, but I would recommend anyone going check out Dr. Dog, Corey Wong for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Corey Wong's solo. I have never seen Dr. Dog, and they've been around forever. They've been at festivals I've been at. So since this is going to be their last touring year, I definitely am excited to be able to go see them. And I've heard a lot of good things about Grateful Shred, who I have not listened to. But yeah, I'm excited all around. I mean, it's just going to be a lot of Goose, too. So all their side projects and everything combined, it's going to be a lot of good music.
I'd be remiss if I did not mention Elephant Proof. Going to be some heat there, and also some Goose history. So Elephant Proof is Ben Atkins. I don't know if anyone listening's heard of him. Chris Enright on keys, who's the original keyboard player in Goose. He played on Moon Cabin. Sean Gordon on bass. Any bassist whose last name is Gordon, you have to assume is good. And Sean Cronin on guitar, who absolutely rips. These guys met in Boston, at Berkeley, and they're sitting on an album. New single, Hyphy, just came out. But Elephant Proof is going to tear it up late night. So if you haven't heard of Ben Atkins, check him out.
Yeah, I think he's the percussionist for that band, right?
Yeah, but something that really caught me was the fact that, like I said, like it's a lot of bands that really don't pop up in the jam scene as much. And I've really been deep in that rabbit hole lately. But recently a Relics article came out with Rick and Peter talking with Ezra from Vampire Weekend about the 2021 single. And they talked about not surrounding yourself with the same old cast of your genre. So I feel like we're getting a lot of influences of Goose and not really the bands around them. Like, you know, when I thought a Goose festival was going to be possible, I expect like Neighbor, Eggy, like all these bands that have kind of been in the family for so long. So it's really cool to kind of hear like this indie side of Goose kind of being introduced to the festival.
It's always been apparent in their music, I feel like. And I just, you know, people want to hear a lot of different influences, but indie's always been a big one, and it's a big vibe that Rick tries to do. And Peter likes that genre of music as well. So those guys, it even says on the festival billing that it's a festival that was kind of curated by the band, and they were able to obviously have some influence over who came and played. So it's awesome that these are artists that they appreciate and respect and listen to, but also that these artists appreciate them enough to want to come out and play their festival. So, I mean, I think there's no doubt that we're going to see a lot of good music that weekend, and the variation is going to be fresh. So it's going to be cool to see at an environment like that normally is hosting a lot of dead bands, a lot of, you know, more country music. And so this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, that sound of Ice Cubes is it's Bruce Robinson's beverage.
Espelon.
Your best decision or your worst decision. Still looking for sponsors. Yeah, so I do think, you know, the kind of wide swath of musicians is going to be pretty cool. I think just it also speaks to the fact that there is so much going on in the jam world right now. You know, there's festivals everywhere every single weekend, and so I think it'll be just kind of a cool look to present something a little bit different, and just some names that we don't necessarily always see on a bill with Goose.
Yeah, great idea for them to organize this festival on a weekend when literally every other band in the country is playing. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. I'll be there. Yeah.
Bold strategy.
Yeah. I'll be there with 400 other people. No, I'm just kidding. There'll be 500. It's fine.
Yeah, the farm will be packed. But speaking of the farm, the Lock-in Farm, which is the first time I'm hearing it really officially called by that name, set up by Pete Shapiro. And it's really cool since, you know, the Rockefeller Center show of Goosemas that they connected with Pete Shapiro and they got to put this together, along with J-Rad and Tedeschi Trucks are doing a festival too. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, Greg, as their publicist, do you have any insight as to the connection with Peter Shapiro? Or have they left you in the dark once again?
As their publicist, I know absolutely nothing, which is why we always release these episodes the same day as they have announcements. Yeah. I think obviously there's kind of a mutual admiration there. Pete was helpful in getting Goosemas to become what it was, and you know, obviously partnering with Twitch. And you know, there's been a relationship with Relics since 2018. But really, it's just, you know, to know him, you have to have a good publicist. So,
yeah, that's a good point, Greg.
But yeah, I do think you know, kind of beyond just the connection with Shapiro, it's like we have a band that is very interested in getting people involved with more than just watching them play music, as evidenced by Bingo Tour last year. So, there's going to be a ton of different activities happening at Fred the Fest as well. So. Be sure to stretch.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited about those activities for everyone who will be participating in them. My activity is going to be sleeping, maybe trying to eat at some point, and then watch music. That's usually as far as I can get with festivals. But yeah, looking forward to the activities for everybody that wants to do them. That's going to be great.
Yeah, I hope the Lock and Farm kind of turns into a little rec center vibe. Couple camp counselors out there watching over us.
Yeah, that's for sure. And definitely, at least, for Joey and I, the two of us aren't getting married the following week, so we'll be down there representing the podcast. Maybe Greg. But while we've brainstormed some fun ideas for the festival, feel free to throw us your suggestions, what you'd like to see from us on socials. And as always, if you see us out there on the festival grounds, feel free to run over and say hi for a chance to be featured on this incredible, famous podcast.
Yeah, I'm still working on our manager to get that time off, but I'll tell you where it will be. That's leg 2 of Summer Tour. We'll be up in Swansea, and we just got our outfits in for New Haven, so if you haven't heard, get your best outfits ready for Saturday, because we're going to have some special surprises in store for listeners on the lot.
That's right. Dress your best. We can't wait to see you out there. But as promised, we traveled down the pathway with Franz and Kenny. So let's get to that. And please ignore the constant notifications coming in on Greg's phone. He is the people's publicist after all.
No days off, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Great Beyond, our first international call. We're paying for this moment by moment, so we do need some sponsors. We have our French correspondent, Franz Petít Lúpen.
Oh, Franz.
On the phone. Live from France, probably the person who knows the most about Shenanigans Nite Club as far as our correspondence goes. We have a few questions for him about this new album coming out on June 4th.
So, Franz.
Bonjour.
Oh, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Oh, oui.
Oh.
So, I'll kick it off, Franz. So, this album, the cool thing is about it is it features everything, right? We got a brand new song with The Labyrinth, old songs revisited, and jam sections to complement all of it. So, out of this whole album, is there anything in particular that you are most proud of? Whether it's a contribution of yours, a particular song, a segment you love?
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot I'm very proud about with this album. First of all, there was a time where track 2, Satellite, guitar solo that I play was supposed to be John Scofield. So I'm very proud of the solo I laid down on that, and I hope Scofield can be proud of it too. Maybe I can get his vote of confidence, but that was a thing at some point when I had met Rick. I think earlier in 2017 on a train to see like a Baker's Dozen show. He showed me the track list for Shenanigans, and track 2 was like, it was like So Ready Part 2 featuring Scofield. And I was like, oh, you guys are getting Scofield? Like, that's awesome.
Nice. Yeah, it just totally misled you, which is also awesome. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I mean, he really wanted to get Scofield on it, and I don't know. I played it, so
perfect.
I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I'm also very proud of all the tracking we did at our house. I think it sounds incredible for what we had, and really proud of it. Just all the sounds, soundscape.
Just to follow up on that, Peter, because I actually had another question that this kind of leads into, but I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the studios you guys worked in, because it wasn't only that you guys recorded at Factory Underground, which is a great, classic place for Goose in Norwalk, but you also recorded at your old house in Richfield. So just, a couple things like, what do you like most about recording at Factory Underground, and then having to do it in two places? What were some of the biggest challenges you guys faced?
Yeah, so I mean, the majority of it was recorded at Rick's mom's house and then our place in Richfield. And we recorded 2 things at Factory, which were the Madhavan Jam and the Dark Horse Thunder Jam. And that was just Rick and I. Because the way the album was recorded, we didn't really have like a studio space we could all track at the same time. So it was kind of done like part by part. And a lot of credit to Rick for really having like a clear vision for, how the jams were going to go. Like the jams were kind of composed in a lot of ways.
Oh, okay.
Like the chord progressions and stuff that happened in the Madhavan jam was composed, and it was like it was really well thought out, and I love it. I think it's so great. And so Rick and I went in and played piano and guitar at Factory together for those jam segments, because we just wanted them to have that live feel to them,
Yeah.
That's something we had to go to a studio for.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, Franz, we're going to talk to Kenny Cash today a little bit to get some more idea about what he contributed to the record. But I want to hear a little bit more about the chemistry that you guys have with Kenny, with Factory Underground, and how that's contributed to the development of your studio sound.
I think it's huge. Kenny's been an amazing collaborator with us ever since Moon Cabin. He went up to the tracking sessions for Moon Cabin to that spot in New Hampshire. I wasn't there, but he was critical in the whole tracking of Moon Cabin. And, in Shenanigans, in a lot of ways, he came to some of our tracking sessions that we did at like Rick's mom's house and in Richfield, and basically just gave us pointers, helped us set up mics. I mean, it was very collaborative from the very beginning of tracking of the record. So, definitely he has a huge influence. We've had so much fun going to Factory. I mean, he mixed the whole thing, which was definitely quite an undertaking. Engineer out there, it's really hard to mix an album that is recorded in so many different places and at so many different times. And, we were just laying down tracks at our house, like when we had free time. So like there was a lot of like probably technical things that we were doing wrong, but he did a great job kind of wrangling it all together and kind of creating the album in that way. So much credit to Kenny on this one, big time.
Yeah, definitely. And would you say there's any added difficulties to recording in separate places, or possibly any benefits to recording in separate places? Because to me, I mean, it just sounds like an organizational nightmare potentially, but would you say anything like great came out of recording that way?
I think the cool thing about it was that we just got more experience recording and doing stuff ourselves, which is so fun. Especially for me, I love recording myself. Like when I write songs, I record them at the same time usually. That's usually a process I go into and create a demo, and I just love recording. So we just got more knowledgeable and smarter about that in general. So that was beneficial for us as individual musicians and producers of our own.
Yeah, definitely.
So Franz, so this was your first time recording with the whole group, including Jeff. How did that creative process kind of go down and work for you all as you were kind of piecing this thing together? And then what about working together with the band went really well? And in terms of that collaborative process, what do you think best benefited the album from that?
I mean, it was so great. Like we lived with Jeff, so during COVID, he kind of just hopped on some recordings. Like as we were going, it was like Rick would have like an idea for a percussion part, and Jeff was there, and it was just like, Jeff, can you play this on this track? And that's just kind of how it happened organically. So I mean, that process was incredible, and I think just the naturalness of how that all happened and us just living together and tracking at the house was really, I don't know, it really like lives within the record. You could really hear it. I think it's just a very natural and free flowing record.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, again, that does complement your live sound as well. So I've got one more really pressing question for Franz. Is that personally, I've always questioned this new fad of everyone wearing the tightest pants possible, especially since it seemed to become more popular after I gained a significant amount of weight. So as a European, who we all know have been as a culture wearing tight clothes for many, many years, what are your thoughts specifically about this trend? And you're a slim guy, Franz. Do you have any specific tightness you go for, or do you prefer comfort?
great question.
I'm known for great questions.
I've been
Here at the Great Beyond.
I've been going for like the slim pants for a while now, and that's kind of my jam. I'm not a skinny jean type guy, but they have been putting spandex in pretty much all modern day jeans and pants. So you do get a little bit more of that stretch on the thinner cuts. So my thought is that, like, as long as you got that, you can go as tight as you want, and I encourage you to do so, Bruce. I don't think you should shy away from that.
I don't know if there's enough spandex still.
I bought a husky pair of khakis in 1996. I've been getting tailored to my body ever since. But it's good to know that the modern trends reflect my new shape.
It's all about. For me on stage, it's all about movements. I need to feel like I can move around easily enough and also not be like weighed down. So I prefer, like, I don't have anything in my pockets when I play. I always just like empty my pockets and like try and feel as light as possible.
So that's why you're not responding to all the texts.
Very strategic move.
I see. Okay, I'm not going to take it personally.
6 texts in a row, play Factory Fiction.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, exactly. I'm monitoring the stream chat.
Well, Franz, thank you for hopping down the pathway with us. We look forward to seeing what comes next. I know there's so much more happening this year. Franz Petít Lúpen, if you could leave us with some knowledge. I tried to Google Translate, and I think it's Little Wolf is your last name. Is that hyphenated?
No shit.
Something. So yeah.
Dude, I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, so we'll get there.
Yeah.
We're all learning French at the same time.
I don't think you found the right spot.
No.
Well, Franz, thanks for hopping on with us. For now, au revoir.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Thanks, Franz.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man.
We'll talk soon.
much.
Thank you. Co-owner of Factory Underground, the co-producer and mix engineer of both Moon Cabin and Shenanigans Nite Club. He's had a chance to capture a whole lot of audio from these guys. So really excited to talk to you, Kenny. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So since Moon Cabin, you have been an integral part of shaping Goose's studio sound. It seems like you and Rick are almost always speaking the same language as you dial in sound on each track. Tell us a little bit about how you guys started to work together and where it's gone since then.
Yeah, so originally Rick came down to the studio with a side project. I think it was pre-Goose. And actually, even before that, they were doing like the what led to Goosemas was a Vasudo concerts down here for Christmas show. You know what I mean?
A very Vasudo
Crazy
Christmas.
Coach was setting that stuff up back in the day.
Yeah, a lot had to do with Coach back then.
So so he came down and then he started taking vocal lessons with my business partner Ethan.
Okay.
And as he started forming Goose, I think he called Ethan, was talking about, can I borrow some gear potentially to go up to his cabin in Maine and record? And my business partner was like, yeah, you might want to take an engineer with you too.
Sure.
So he recommended me. And then, Rick and I probably who only spoke like, I don't know, a handful of times, called me up and we had a conversation and it was pretty chill. And, we ended up conversing a lot on the way up to that cabin in Maine.
It's a long,
we did a
drive,
lot of listening to music,
really long
stuff
drive.
that he liked. Yeah. Stuff that he liked and stuff that I liked and stuff that was influencing. I mean, we listened to Peter Gabriel. We listened to John Mayer. We listened to John Scofield. We listened to even Sia. We were listening to.
Oh, Sia slaps.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Big Sia fans here.
Yeah. So we were just kind of talking. I was kind of trying to prep, like, okay, we can have this fat snare. We could have this kind of snare. You know what I mean? Trying to get a language started with him, as what he liked and what he was, vibing off of and digging. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's
that's where the language really started, Yeah. And I think that was like probably most, I'd like to think, I don't know, maybe my most integral, I think, part of the band was talking about communicating not only with me, but with one another in the band,
Sure.
Listen to each other, how to play off of one another, how to, play space.
Yep.
Things of that nature.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's still something that they're, that they continue to work on, but I like one thing about Moon Cabin is that I think you guys really, really played with space, whether it was actually, the solos on Lead the Way or literally playing with space by dragging microphones out into the middle of a frozen lake.
Yeah.
There's reverb to be found anywhere.
Yeah, that's like still that's that little part of that song still gives me so much joy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's such a funny little part of the song, and it just, I don't know why, it just like makes me smile every time when I listen to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. It's one of the cooler stories that come out of that whole Moon Cabin thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you and Rick had those like extensive conversations about what you want to see. Do you feel like it's important to have that with every artist you work with? Or sometimes do artists just come in, they know what they want, they tell you what they want, and then you just lay it down?
Yeah, I'd say it is a little bit different from artist to artist, you can kind of get a sense as you're talking, like how much the person, may want your influence or not want your influence, or how much of an idea they have of their specific sound, or so it definitely is a case by case basis. I would say, like, of the bands and artists that I work with, Rick and I are up there, as far as having lengthy conversations when we start talking.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, when you get Rick going on a topic that he loves, man, he will definitely talk. But so no doubt. And you mentioned artists. I mean, we love all of the guys in the band. Big disclaimer here. We love all of the guys in the band, but we also know that they're artists, and we know that artists can on occasion be difficult to work with. But so what, in your opinion, was the easiest thing about working with the guys in the band, and maybe what was one of the more challenging things, if anything?
Yeah, I would say, well, it all depends. Trevor is always super easy, it seems like.
Yeah, sure, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ben's the most chill dude. Yeah.
Ben, I know Ben is easy in a lot of ways, and he's just like the quintessential drummer. I hate to say it. Sorry, Ben. You are
sorry,
the
Ben. Nah, he
drummer,
deserves
dude.
it. Nah, it's fine.
His sister's in the mixing
so
room
much,
right
by
now.
the way, which is just so awesome.
Yep.
Yeah,
both of the guys I mentioned have progressed so much, as
Absolutely.
players and just musicians. That's just great. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Pete has a very definitive path, I feel like, and like trajectory. As far as when I'm working with Pete, I feel like I can talk with him and really know where the end goal is going to be in a very short time, which is great. And then Rick has kind of got this little like curvy, he's kind of taking detours along the way, which is great as well, because he's experimenting and he's finding stuff about himself and about the sound and about sound in general.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, man, and all artists, they have their, myself included, have their little, we call them piccadillies, you know what I mean? Where we're sensitive at times.
They're quirks.
I don't know if I could say this, but I always say, like, and I apologize, sometimes I'm like, Rick, sometimes you're a bitchy little artist, and I get that because I'm a bitchy little artist too.
You can absolutely say that on the Great Beyond, by the way. Yeah, we agree.
Totally
we agree.
Yeah, yes. We pretty much made this podcast to let Rick know that that's how we feel.
Sorry, Rick. Man.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
He doesn't
Everyone
listen
has
to the
their
podcast.
moments.
It's fine.
Yeah,
It's fine.
And again, the big disclaimer, that was why I said that.
So we're on the precipice of something people have been waiting for a long time. Shenanigans Nite Club has been,
tell me about it.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, it's been promised for years and years and years, and I think, beyond the initial recording sessions, and then obviously losing a big chunk of the hard work that was put into it when the hard drive was lost, like, there had to be another focus on this. And I think the interesting thing about it is that so many of the tracks are ones that, like, us as fans, custies, if you will.
I'll accept that.
Yeah, we've seen millions of So Readies at O'Neill's and like at Bryac, and we've been waiting to hear this actually on wax. So I'm wondering, I guess, how you think them losing some of the tracks and having to come back in and work on them again impacted the sound, and also, do you think that this is an accurate look at where Goose is now, or kind of a summation of the last few years?
Well, first off, with like Shenanigans, you got to remember there was other members in the band even while this thing was being recorded. Like Doc was a keyboard player, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
First started. I went to record the basic tracks twice, at their place in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Which ended up both times getting thrown away.
Oh gosh.
Really?
Ironically enough, more so almost just because of vibe, I feel like the band wasn't on the same wavelength at that moment. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And I think that's something that maybe it was a blessing, everything getting lost at one point.
Sure.
And not everything got lost. There was a fair chunk of stuff that got lost, I know, but not everything got lost,
Right.
So like, I think there might've been a little bit of a blessing because, Jeff really stepped in on this record towards the end and really has in my opinion, had a big impact on the sound of the record. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Definitely.
But you had Doc, you had Chris Junker was playing keys for a little bit too,
yeah.
right?
Sure. Yep.
Before Pete was in the band, and the percussionist Aaron was
on it too. Yeah.
So it's like kind of maybe it was just meant to be. You know what I mean?
Sure.
As far as it's very interesting because I've heard so much Goose, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm exposed to as a Goose listener, right, is not necessarily what most of the fans are exposed to, right? I've seen them live. I've been to live shows. I've seen them in the very early inception of them live. But there's a lot of people that have been to a lot of live shows. So as much as there is that live thing that carries into the record, I know them as more of a studio band because I'm listening to those tracks thousands of times. You know what I mean?
Sure.
To get everything to the spot. But I think there's a different approach for them in the studio as opposed to live, at least right now. Will that always be that way? I don't think so. You know what I mean? I think they're going to constantly evolve and change. They're going to have records that are supposed to be more like them live. And there'll probably be times where they're trying to do something that's a little bit more like, special to the studio because you have the extra production capabilities in the studio.
Kenny, I think that's one of the things about the jam world is it's almost the culture to say we're going to go see 1 million live shows and almost like disregard whatever band it is, like what they're doing in the studio, And one thing that's unique about Goose and specifically about Rick is like that passion for crafting the right sonic experience. And so basically, this is my passionate plea to our listeners to check out the studio stuff too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's hilarious. Like we got this record, we got all the way done mixed. Everyone signed off on the mix, and they were doing kind of a side project in Woodstock to tape.
Yep.
And I got a call. Like everyone signs off on the project, and I get a call, and it's like, hey, do you want to run this to tape? And I was like, I didn't know how to respond at first. I was like, is everyone in the band cool with that? You know what I mean? And then I just called him back and I was like, hey brother, let's do it. Let's try it. We'll run the a cappella stem and the instrumental stem through. And that stuff we didn't end up even using. So we went up to this studio in Woodstock and ran it through tape, and then sent it off to the master engineer. And I was like, I don't know, Rick. I don't know if this is kind of like the sonic experience, that we're all looking for, maybe.
Right.
And that was a little bit of a tough conversation. You could even ask Rick. I really didn't want to call Rick and be like, dude, I don't know if this is right. I know you might like it, but I don't think this is exactly where we want it to be.
Yeah.
And so I was like, we got this mastering engineer. Let's send it to him, both versions, and see what he says. And, he went with the original. So, which, was all in the box,
Right.
But yeah, so it's definitely one of those things. It's been a journey, but I think, it's been a lot to birth this thing. And I think, I'm happy that it's done. I'm sure Rick is feeling relieved that it's done too. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm sure
absolutely.
Pete and everyone else, and Trevor and Ben and everyone too was relieved as well. So,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We talked to Peter a little bit earlier too, and he was mentioning how a lot of the pieces were recorded in separate spaces. The band wasn't always together. From an engineering perspective, how difficult is that for you for putting all the pieces together? Would you rather have a band playing live in a studio together, or do you like focusing one by one on each member of the band?
It's a little case by case. I'll say this was the hardest record, maybe other than or equivalent to my little opera thing that I've been developing for however now.
No big deal.
No big deal. Just a little opera.
Oh yeah. It's like this. Yeah. It's just a whole concept thing that I've been working on to keep myself sane, which probably drives me crazy too.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the opposite.
Yeah. But this has been the hardest project that I've had to work on. I mean, the songs are very long, Labyrinth is, I think, around 12 minutes,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different pieces, and there's all of a sudden you're making a left turn. Some of the tracks would be like SOS Part 1, SOS Part 2, SOS Part 3, SOS Part 4.2.
For sure.
And, so it's like it was all in these like different sessions. It was definitely a trick to get this one to have a vibe on it, but that's all that stuff lives in the project, and that's one of the beauties behind it. You know what I mean? I was trying to tell Rick too. I even if you stay on the box, there's a ghost in the machine, and there's a soul for the process that will have its own unique process. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting, and all of the pieces that go into these things, whether they're used or not, or lost or not, it all adds up to the final product eventually. So Kenny,
what I'm saying is, I don't fucking know. Maybe.
Yeah, right. Well, we'll see. You can say that. But Kenny, to get a little off the band, because this really isn't a Goose podcast, and we've definitely talked enough about them. But we've loved the Factory Underground space for years. I definitely know I have. I did not know that place was tucked away in the heart of Norwalk down there until Goose really started playing there and having Goosemas there. So you've been there for quite some time. You're co-owner. I was wondering, how did you get involved in working there in the first place? And then what's your favorite aspect of working at that studio?
Okay. So I met Ethan. I wasn't supposed to be co-owner. I just had to change my situation, moving out after college and then moving out of, family's house or whatever. I had to kind of change up, and I was looking for studio space, and this was a spot, and there was a little room in 10 by 14 room that I was ready to rent. I was going to do the build out. I had I got all the wood here, and then the day that me and my uncle were going to start doing the build out, it flooded the little room.
Jeez.
So it was like kind of this thing where my uncle was like, well, is there any other spaces like available in this building? And, Ethan, my business partner, walked me around the building, and there was this like curtain hanging basically, which was actually an old rug or whatever. And he was like, well, this is back here. This is where I want to build a professional studio. But, because mine was going to be more of a project studio. I was going to kind of work out of there, develop beats, and he wanted something a little higher up. While my project studio I planned on making really nice, I wasn't expecting this full huge blueprint down here.
Right.
So he walked me back there and he was like, we could work together, but then we'd have to be business partners. And my uncle was like, I'm going to get a bacon, egg, and cheese. You guys figure this out when I get back. You know where I'm building. So me and Ethan had a quick conversation, and it was like, you want to do this? And he was like, yeah. And we barely, again, same thing, barely knew each other, which I think can actually really work to your favor, because there's no like long-term friendship. I don't really have to be that polite. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I can be honest, but I also still have to be polite enough that like, this guy can't think I'm crazy. You know what I mean?
Right. Still like a real professional relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. So we ended up bacon, egg, and cheese came back, and we ended up just tearing some stuff down and starting to go for it. Yeah. And then like, as far as my favorite thing is like, I think some artists have this, some don't, my own social anxieties and, awkwardnesses and shyness, they can disappear down here. Mm-hmm. I am, king down here. Right, so when people come down here, I feel like that my soul is in these walls. I feel like all the people that work down here and have been down here, and the artists, and they're very attached to the place, and they can feel comfortable down here. So for me, it's like feeling like, I'm living, I guess, art at that, if that sounds
no, it
not
does, definitely.
too abstract and weirdo-ish, you know what I mean? And I feel like I can be just my most natural self, I think.
Yeah.
So,
and I feel that too, because even as fans, when we would go down there and we'd go down there for the Goosemas parties, I mean, it just had such a vibe.
That's exactly it.
Such a cool vibe,
Like that's what I was gonna say, is that like for some of the longest tenured Goose fans, our annual celebration was in that basement in Factory Underground with a whole bunch of beer, wine, pizza, salad.
A lot of pizza. Tons of pizza.
I'm
pretty sure John ordered like 70 for the first for like 50
that
people.
Was the craziest. I remember that. Like being like, yo, the pizzas are still coming down here. What is going on?
We had people walking out at the end of the night with like multiple pizzas.
Yeah, I'm sure if you look hard enough, you can find some crust tucked away somewhere in the room.
I'm sure.
Is pizza's code for something, or am I missing?
No, it's actually pizza.
Yeah,
This is not.
It's not a QAnon podcast. So we are. So but I do want to talk kind of about Goosemas, because I think this is something that has been so integral in the growth of the band, and also keeping us rooted in like the ethos of how this all came to be. And it all started at Factory. In my mind, most of them are a blur, that are all mixed together. But Kenny, do you have any memorable Goosemas moments?
Well, I'll tell you, like, I guess I'll give you the progression. Goosemas used to be like one of my most stressful nights of the year.
I can only imagine.
That is not a surprise.
Yeah. It was stressful, because you got to understand, like, we didn't even have a C of O at that point for doing these events. There was a fair amount of alcohol, right?
Fair.
At this point, everyone was still kind of young-ish 20s. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Like kind of being a little, brash. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A little brash.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're far too kind.
I'm going to be polite. You know
You're far too kind.
We appreciate that,
but
Kenny.
it used to stress me the fuck out. You know what I'm saying? It was super stressful in the beginning. But what was funny, and I kind of would let Rick know that too, or John. I would let them know, like, yo, this is like, this stresses me out. And it's no dig against the band. But what's funny is after 4 of them or 5 of them, kind of including Vasudo, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was that by the end of it, like, people had grown, and the band was more serious. It wasn't kind of like this friends party anymore. It was actually like people were into the band and the music. They were taking a little bit more note to what was going on artistically. You know what I mean? They were obviously more respectful. You know what I mean?
Slightly.
Like,
Yeah, I'm still an asshole.
Like,
I don't even know.
Someone stole my business partner's like this dope fur coat that he had.
Yeah.
That was just like on one of our mannequins randomly, and I was like, man, that sucks. You know what I mean?
Versus
but by the end of it, I was
wearing
like, man, this doesn't have to go anywhere now. You know, it's cool. But at that point, they got too big for the space. You know what I mean? So, which is cool to like. I guess that's my fondest memory is the fact that it went from this kind of like group of, you know, high school friends, you know what I mean, to like, oh, this is a real thing, you know? So I guess that would be like my fondest of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
very cool.
So. Yeah, we all moved from pizza heavy diets to more salad as we got older.
I actually ate over half a pizza by myself last night, so I don't know who moved on from those habits.
Like once I hit 30, I started cutting the carbs.
And it wasn't just pizza too. It was like a lot of Subway sandwiches.
It was not just
my coach that too.
Yeah, I know.
We had enough. We had many chickens worth of chicken tenders in there too.
The Italian herbs and cheese. I can smell it now. Well, Kenny Cash, thank you so much for joining us today. You know, I think when this is eventually inscribed in history, you are someone who has crafted a sound and allowed Rick to be able to convey, I think, a lot of what he conceived could be possible in the studio. And so thank you so much for allowing, you know, yourself to be able to amplify that sound. We're so thankful for it. I think I want to ask one more thing.
Sure.
What's your favorite track on Shenanigans Nite Club?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay.
Put him on the
Horse
hot
is
seat
my favorite.
now.
I think lyrically, I just love it. I think it's just a beautiful lyric. You know what I mean? I just feel like I feel like there's a very unique way of writing in that.
Sure.
You know, I'd say like as far as what I thought would be the single would be So Ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
It sounds like
but
a
yeah,
single track.
Dark Horse is definitely my favorite because of the song itself. I mean, I just think it's anytime something gives me a visual, when I hear it, I usually love it, and I'm like sitting in the campfire. You know what I mean when I'm listening to that.
Dude,
So
I couldn't agree more, Kenny. I feel the same way about Spirit of Dark Horse. It's great.
And hearing it live at Frederick like completely changed my perspective of it again.
Yeah.
In addition to hearing the studio version, so I mean, I agree.
I'm partial to SOS, but that's just because I generally need help. Kenny, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
We
thank you guys for all you do as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh no, well thank you.
This is,
I appreciate that.
This isn't even a Goose podcast, you know. We just have to fill our Sundays. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you out there on the road, and you know, I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot. It was great having
you guys have a good one.
You too, Kenny.
Thanks, Kenny.
Once again, thanks to Franz and Kenny for taking the time to speak with us. Certainly got some great insight into the making of the album there. But it's time to hear from the analysts themselves for their expert opinions on the album. So, guys, what were your initial thoughts when you first heard this album that late Friday night, late Thursday night, early Friday morning?
Yeah, let's not confuse fans out there.
Yeah, I know,
we don't use a 24-hour clock in the U.S. I know it's tough.
I know midnight has a different meaning to some fans as others.
Yeah, I guess it does depend where you are. Well, let's not pretend like
that we can tell time either. Certainly cannot.
I think, you know, for me, I guess my initial reaction to hearing everything was kind of a wave of relief. It's been a long time coming. I think we can honestly say that, right? It's been a really long time, and like, a lot's happened with the band. in order for this to happen and really come to fruition the way that it has. And frankly, working on an album is a lot of work, so it was just a wave of relief hearing the first notes and knowing I didn't have to write another adjective about this.
Yeah, and I was preoccupied with other music the other weekend, and I wanted to wait for an opportunity to really listen to the album. And I mean, my first impressions were just that it came out cohesively. It really sounded like a whole album, which is rare these days where people don't really focus on albums. So that's kind of a throwback. You know, and I liked it. I mean, just right off the bat, it just sounded a much more mature band, and the album was really good. A lot of good songs. So.
It's like they grew into their mustaches.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, so something, I guess you guys have known the band, you know, for their entire existence. So in this album, did you hear the Goose since Moon Cabin, the growth that's come to now, or did you perhaps hear a future Goose that you're excited to hear live in Leg 2, perhaps?
I think it's a mix of both.
Okay.
I think this record is a really good summary of what the past 5 years have been, like how they've been propelled to where they are right now, depending on what tier you think they are, listener. You know, it's like, I think it's a really good summary of this sound that they've carved out that is their own, that's gotten them this recognition. But also, like, there's whispers of what's to come next. I only say that because I wrote it in their bio.
Bio is a great bio. It's worth repeating.
Yeah.
No, but the same kind of idea that they really do sound a lot more like they do live now in their recordings than, let's say, Moon Cabin, which was, it just feels like eons ago, even though it was only, 6 years. So that was impressive to be able to hear that. They've taken that live sound that they've now formed really well since they got Peter in the band. And with Jeff on the album, it's fuller, it's richer. Like I said before, it's a little bit more mature. Like Greg said, it's kind of an accumulation of all the years up to this point. But yeah, it's going to be a good median point for them to follow up with, you know, more music in the future too.
So Joey, since your only role here is not just to do all of the work,
that's his main role.
What was your initial impression of the album? You know, what are your thoughts as you know, an analyst intern?
I love that role.
It's unpaid, so yeah.
College credit, I hope.
Yeah.
Continuing education, Joey, don't worry.
No, I mean, my initial reaction was just each moment. Like, I felt like I was so focused in a way that upon re-listening, I haven't really been able to get back to that moment where I'm, like, fully focused on every single thing that's happening. And, like, I mean, my initial reaction to Dawn, like, during Rick's solo there, like, I thought, oh, this is the song I want to hear, you know, the last thing I want to hear before I die kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yep.
Just like a real connection to the music. And, like, going back, I'm hearing these little moments that I didn't hear at first, but, like, that first feeling of, wow, like, I'm so excited for what the future holds for this band. I think that was probably my initial reaction.
It's almost a good thing. I've actually listened to the album a few times without really necessarily trying to really re-listen to it and just letting it play through. And it's kind of nice to be able to forget that you're kind of listening to it. You're listening to it all the way through, and you just hone in on certain parts and you go about your business during others. And it's a really listenable album. It doesn't necessarily need to like take precedence when you're listening to it. You know, I said to John Caruso, editor-in-chief, that it's really a good Sunday listening album, you know, and that's not necessarily a knock on it. It's like there's always been certain things like CSNY Deja Vu that I would listen to, you know, on those Sunday mornings when you're just chilling and trying to get some chores done, and it's like a really nice vibe to put on. And I think this album does it, and it's interesting enough that you can continue to listen to it.
I think one thing too about studio releases in the jam world, if you will, is like
nobody can see your air quotes that you just put
up.
We will.
Will you? So I think the thing about studio releases, especially now with a lot of bands, is you do get a lot of songs that have been road tested that you've heard live over the years, and you know, like we know, everyone in the jam world has an opinion, and so I think the common gripe at times is like there's not enough new material. But I also think in the jam world, studio albums aren't always necessarily respected. People just want to hear live cuts, just really hear what a band can do. But one big thing I've always said about Goose is their serious approach to recording and crafting like a strong product that sounds incredible that you can just sit down and listen to is some of the best I've ever heard.
Well, and Peter mentioned that too.
Right.
You know, right. He mentioned that in our interview that they took a serious approach. Peter really cares about the studio. Rick really cares about the studio. Obviously, him and Kenny had all those conversations about ideas and direction, and then Peter claimed that, you know, Rick did have a good, clear direction in a lot of cases that helped them push this album along when they were doing it in pieces. So it does come from an appreciation of the studio. You can hear that and how cohesive the album is.
Let's talk about SOS. I want to talk about SOS because the album is called Shenanigans Nite Club, and SOS is, you know,
the namesake.
Yeah, this is the ethos of the whole thing.
Same old shenanigans for people who don't know the acronym.
So, Same Old Shenanigans is one of my favorite Goose songs. I was really, really lucky to catch one of 2 live performances of the track in Boulder, Colorado in 2019, 131, I believe, at the Lazy Dog, and I knew it could be something special. Bruce, I think you caught the second one at Covington that February.
Oh, no. Funny that you mentioned that. No, I have not caught either live version, but I'm going to catch the live version in New Haven this weekend. So it's okay.
So, I mean, I've been waiting for so long for this track to be on wax, and it is all that I dreamed of. But I do think, you know, it was always one kind of long, extended, whatever, 12 to 14-minute thing that included what is now understood as Dawn.
Right.
And so I definitely think, like, obviously listening to the album through, you hear Dawn and you know it's a logical next step to SOS, but also Dawn is kind of like a jam that slaps on its own. So I do think it was pretty smart to cut these tracks in half.
Yeah, and I mean, since we're on this kind of track of asking Joey questions for the first time and maybe only time as we do this podcast.
Since episode 2, remember we asked him that question?
Oh, we did? Oh, I forgot all about it. But yeah, so we're going to ask Joey another question, but, you know, what are your thoughts, Joey, essentially on keeping those jams as those separate songs?
So I love it because it really gives the people who maybe aren't as into jam bands digestible songs, people who like to sing along, they like lyrics, like that's the whole point of listening to music. They get to listen to those songs, and then for us who love the second halves of those songs, love the jams, we also get to listen to that. The only possible frustration I see coming from it is when I put these songs in a playlist and put the playlist on shuffle, and I only get half the song. Like I'm reaching out to the Spotify executives, please, if you could somehow let us pair up songs. Like if one's going to play, then the other's going to play. Like that would ideally, you know,
I hear the Spotify executives actually right now, the echo of them saying they don't care. They actually aren't going to do any of that. That's on you.
Do you know how many listens we get to your streaming platform?
Yeah, we are the number 41 music commentary podcast on Apple Music.
Goose has made at least 12 cents as a band on just the replays of Thunder from Spirit of the Dark Horse. So come on, Spotify. Yeah. You know? Show us some slack. We got leverage.
Everybody's got to eat out here. Yeah, but no, I do think it could be a crazy kind of, my brain would explode if I heard a 700 after it in parentheses Dawn.
Yeah, I would have certain reactions as well. I'm not sure what those would be, but I think it'd also be cool. You know, it does give them the flexibility now too, to do something like Joey and I were talking before we started recording about that idea of the curtain or the curtain width. Now they can do something where they have the beginning of a song and they can crunch things in between that and then play the ending jam, the ending composed section, or they could start off with the composed section, never play the single part of the song, if you will, you know, so it gives them more flexibility. It gives fans something to chew on, you know, all in all, it gives them that artistic leverage in the album itself too, to be able to really highlight these composed sections that are actually like pretty impressive.
So my question for you guys, do you think that they'll be playing these separate jam sections live as those separate entities? Like, will we see, you know, this weekend in New Haven, an echo of a Rose into a Dawn? Or are they going to be playing, you know, these tracks as the full thing.
I'll tell you what I want. You just mentioned Echo of a Rose, but like this is gonna be separate. I want that little echo. I want that.
The ending,
The alternate
like,
ending.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the pseudo ending to
Yeah.
Echo of a Rose.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my answer. Go ahead.
I want Kiss from a Rose, but that's where I thought we were going with this. But
You
really,
gotta come see the Sea Lion after show.
I honestly, if I'm going to give my honest opinion, I think that they're, with the way they are really somewhat perfectionists and ultimate professionals when it comes to their live shows, and why it sometimes feels like it might be taking the band a little bit of a long time to go try to what people would perceive as take risk, is because they really put out an excellent live show every time, and it takes a lot of professionalism. Like I mentioned, it takes a lot of maturity. It takes a lot of patience with their playing of these songs, a lot of practice, and just feeling comfortable with being able to go out there and really give fans what they want and put on a good performance, whether or not they're extending it or taking risks or just playing it straight up. So I do think what we'll probably see at first is at least some of these new songs come out and get crushed, by the band in their entirety. And then, sure enough, like they've done in the past, then they'll start opening up and letting it breathe and trying to sandwich things in between the jams and doing some cool stuff. And I think that's to be expected.
Yeah, and something that makes that possible, I think, is the fact that they played Moby
Right.
during leg one. So this idea of bringing jams out in different places, I mean, I'm excited. Maybe they'll play more TED tapes on leg two.
Yeah, I mean, even that Moby surprised me. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of cool stuff on the way.
I don't think they're gonna play any more TED tapes until people get their TED tapes vinyls.
There's going to be riots at the shows.
I'll see you at 2022.
What's that Dragonfly one? I'm going to get them.
Whoa, look at that. It's me again.
As if we didn't get enough
We need
interruptions.
to turn Greg's phone off during these recording sessions.
I silence everything, but I think I have my iPad with me. Anyway, no big deal. So we're gonna see all of you this weekend. We can't wait to get back to it. Leg 2 is going to be absolutely incredible. I'm happy we're starting in Swayze.
And all three of us will be there, all three shows this weekend. So definitely come around and say hi.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joey's got stickers.
Yeah, we got 500 new first edition slaps for you.
That's right.
Yeah, the Great Beyond, and they're free, unlike those pins that some other fan rag was selling.
Oh man, yeah, I'm really going hard at them.
That's right. No big deal.
Just because the Great Beyond has no money. Okay.
The war starts now.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see you guys on lot, and also you guys.
The Great Beyond was engineered by Robbie Chemical that carries electric. In Brooklyn, New York, on behalf of my co-hosts, I'd like to thank Franz and Kenny
Little Wolf
for taking the time to speak with us today, our manager, Kathleen Rothschild, even though she's not here, and most of all, you, the listeners, for tuning in. Be sure to catch a ride with us next time down the pathway to the Great Beyond.
The Great Beyond.